This is a name that we've featured in the past on Two Wheels, Sachs, and if you've paid attention in the past you'll know that I explained that many years ago Sachs used to make engines and lots of bike builders used to use their engines in their machines, a bit like Rotax do today. Rotax, they use engines, or they make engines for people like CCM, Aprilia and even BMW. Well, that used to be the story with these people, but now we've gone complete role reversal. Sachs are now building the bikes and they're using other people's engines. Not just other people's engines, but other people's bits and pieces from all over the place. And in this bike, we've got some Japanese, we've got Italian, and we've got Spanish. And it's all in this, their new model. It's called the Roadster 800.
This new addition to the Sachs range takes its power from an 805cc Suzuki motor. It's quite torquey and it pulls well from low revs. It's quite a relaxing ride really, nice high handlebars and a seat height of just 770mm, so no pumped up wrists and no balancing on your tiptoes at the traffic lights.
So it's called a Roadster now, this new model. It's not a new name, it's just a new model. They've used the name Roadster before. They've got a 125 in the range and they've got a 650, which you've probably seen before. But is it really a Roadster? Well, I suppose that depends on your definition of a Roadster. What is a Roadster? Who knows? I haven't got a clue myself, but I think this bike doesn't really know what it wants to be. Because if we just look at the front end, first of all, just ignore everything from the forks backwards and look at the forks and the front wheel and the front mudguard there. It's sort of a Street Fighter type thing. It reminds me a bit of a Street Fighter bike. We've got these big chunky Paoli forks there. We've got Spanish down here, Spanish calipers, Gramica calipers and pistons in there. A couple of big twin discs on the front and a nice spoked wheel, so it's got almost a retro look to the wheel. And say big chunky Street Fighter style forks. Up here we've got some chrome. It's only plastic really, but plastic sort of with a chrome look on it. All looks very nice, all looks very retro, even coming up to the mirrors, chrome backs on the mirrors, so Street Fighter, muscly bike, retro feel to it. And this bit here, this reminds me of Honda's X11, you know, the big muscle bike with the Blackbird engine in it. That's got a similar type of thing to this, although a bigger version. Kind of a cowling with some air scoops there to pull air in there to keep things cool. So Street Fighter, retro, now muscle bike. Then we come back here, we've gone from Italian and Spanish up there to Japanese down here. We've got a V-twin motor. Suzuki engine this, it's out of a Suzuki Marauder, 800cc's V-twin, slightly differently tuned, things are done slightly differently inside, but it's essentially Suzuki Marauder engine. V-twin, there you go, dead obvious, loads of chrome. So now it's a custom cruiser. So we've got all this chrome down here, you can sit in your garage and polish that all day long, keep you nice and busy. Say custom cruiser look there. Slash cut exhaust there, so we've got this Street Fighter sort of street bike, drag bike, whatever you want to call it, look there, very sort of aggressive look. Twin shocks at the back, so we're back to retro now. But interestingly, these shocks, these aren't Sachs. Now Sachs make their own shock absorbers and they're very good, they've got a good reputation. These are actually Italian, they're called Padova, so why Sachs don't use their own shocks on their own bike, I don't know. It's my guess, and it's only my guess, that they can probably buy these cheaper than they can actually make their own, but there you go. So twin shocks, retro. Another big spoked wheel at the back with a nice big chunky 160 section rear tyre. So what is it? Is it a Roadster? Well, I suppose if I was to write down a description of this bike, I would have to say it's a sort of street fighting, muscle bike, retro, custom cruiser, or something like that.
What's in the name anyway? It's how it goes and it's how it looks that matter. And whilst it may have a mixture of styles, you have to admit that they all work pretty well when they're put together like this. As for how it goes, well, 110 miles an hour or so is its claimed top speed, but with this style of machine and the lack of wind protection, 70 to 80 is about as much as you can comfortably sustain for any length of time. It created quite a lot of interest at last year's NEC show, and it continues to turn some heads out on the road. It's available in blue or black, and it'll cost you £5,695.
So there it is then, oh, here it is. Oh, the Sachs 800 Roadster. So who's going to buy a bike like this? Well, I've been thinking about it. I think probably two different types of people. Maybe you're born again biker, dare I say. Someone who wants a nice shiny machine that'll impress the neighbours. Well, here it is, ready made, you don't have to do anything to it. Looks quite impressive, nice and aggressive, and all your neighbours will think you've got a nice big expensive powerful machine. Or maybe the person who likes to change things around a bit, because I think this bike is a perfect candidate for customisation. If I owned it, I'd get rid of this here. All this plastic here, this back fender here with the number plate on it. I'd get rid of that and I'd have a nice little neat back end, almost Ducati Monster style. Some nice small indicators there, spend a few bob on that, but it would smarten the back end up a bit. These shocks, I might get rid of these. They're okay, they do the job, but they're not fantastic. And let's face it, if you're on a racing bike, you think nothing of spending a fortune on a shock absorber, then you shove it up there, the top of the swinging arm under the seat where nobody can see it. So treat yourself to a nice pair of twin shocks, nice fancy ones, and they're on full view. These exhausts, now I might stay with them actually because they're quite good. When I say they're quite good, they're quite noisy, and they're noisy at low revs. It seems to be noisier at low revs than it is at high revs for some reason. I don't know if it's because as you're moving fast you leave the noise behind or something, but in town, in a built-up area, when you've got walls either side and it's sort of burbling along very slowly in traffic, it makes a hell of a racket. In fact, if you got lost and you had to ask for directions, you'd have to turn the engine off, because with a full face helmet on, you have no chance of hearing what the hell they're talking about. But that's it. There it is, the 800 Roadster, as it's called. They started with a 125, then they gave us a 650, and now they're giving us this, the 800. So what's next? Watch this space.